Hello friends, my name is Callie and today I will be telling you the things I wish I knew before I started learning Korean. Because I know there are some people out there who are maybe just starting out and would like someone with a bit more experience to tell them the hard truths. I know 3 years ago me would really appreciate a video like this as just sort of a heads up, you know? I don't think these are reasons for you to not study Korean or to get discouraged. I just want to tell you these as a heads up. Like, look out for this, be prepared for this, so you can manage your expectations maybe. I got this video idea from NATALIA'S. I watched her video and I loved it and I thought maybe I should make my own. Our reasons are pretty different, so if you'd like to watch hers after, I will leave a link in the description. And before we get into mine, for those of you who have already started studying Korean, comment down below what's one thing you wish you knew before you started learning Korean. I'm curious. Number 1, the first thing I wish I knew before I started learning Korean, I guess this one really applies if you make your studies public, like on YouTube or Instagram, or maybe it's just me, but for some reason, because I'm learning Korean, I'm automatically a Koreaboo. Every time I speak Korean, I'm a Koreaboo. Every time I make a video teaching you how to study Korean, I'm a Koreaboo. Every time I even show you where I'm living in Korea, I'm a Koreaboo, even if I don't show my face, and I just don't get it. I don't know, what did I do? Why does learning Korean automatically make us Koreaboos? I don't get it. I don't call you a Spainaboo for learning Spanish. I don't call you a Portuguese boo for learning Portuguese. So why am I Koreaboo? Let me know. Maybe I'm doing something I'm not aware of. At first, it was really hard to deal with the constant comments and being shamed online for learning a language. And I honestly wanted to stop studying Korean because of it. I got so unmotivated and it took a while to get over the comments and the hate. But once I went to Korea and started having conversations with natives, all those bad feelings just went away. The Koreans I met seemed so grateful and so happy that I would learn their language because I guess it isn't expected. And I'd have these long conversations with strangers who were nothing but kind and curious. And those moments honestly were enough for me to forget about all those mean comments. And now if I see any, I'm just like, whatever. It doesn't really bother me anymore.
Don't care, don't care, don't care, still don't care. I don't care.
Maybe I've got a bit of thick skin, but I definitely wish I knew that before going public about my studies at least. Okay, so moving on to number 2. I wish I would have known there were 2 sets of numbers. I wish someone would have mentally prepared me for that. For some reason, learning numbers is really hard for me. Maybe it's easier for others, but for me, they just don't stick. Like, even with Spanish, if you say ocho, I have to, oh, it's 5. I have to like count on my fingers. Luckily, I'm past that with Korean, but at first it was so hard. So, you know, they have Sino numbers and they're native numbers. The Sino numbers are like 1, 2, 3, and the native numbers are like 하나, 둘, 셋. And they both have different uses. You have to memorize when to use each of them. So I first memorized the Sino numbers. I was like, okay, took a while, but I got it. And then I was told there was a second set. And I was just like, why? For what? I just had to deal with it, honestly. At first I was like, maybe I don't need to know the second set. Maybe I can get by. But when you tell time, you have to know both of them. So for the first set of numbers is the native numbers, and the second set are the Sino numbers. For example, 5:45. 다섯 시 is hour, and 45분, 5시 45분. So if you don't know both of them, you won't be able to tell time. Oh my gosh. It was just so overwhelming when I was learning. I got through it eventually. I'm good now, but I just wish someone would have given me a heads up, you know? The third thing I wish I knew before studying Korean was that Just because I've seen every Korean drama doesn't mean I can speak Korean. I feel like a lot of people know that, but young me, I was so naive, and I was constantly watching Korean dramas, like every second of the day after school or whatever. That was all I'd watch. And after a while, I would be able to understand a little bit and maybe pick up some words like 안녕하세요, 야, 감사합니다, things like that. I'd be able to pick up little phrases here and there. So I thought I was on top of the world. So when I went to Korea for the first time, I had too much confidence in myself, which I don't know, it can be a good thing or a bad thing. In my case, it was a bad thing. I had this unnecessary confidence that I shouldn't have had. I thought since I could understand a little bit of what was going on in Korean dramas, that I would suddenly just have the skills to speak to everyone, speak for days. I thought when I arrived in Korea, I could talk to natives and just blow their socks off with my skills. It was gonna be ridiculous. Oh God, this is so embarrassing. Yes, little Callie had a lot of confidence in herself. I could say like hi, thank you, little phrases here and there, but that was it. I was so certain that I was at a conversational and almost fluent. I was like, I'm almost fluent. Never spoken to anyone in Korean before that, and I don't even think I could read Korean yet. So I don't know what was going on in my head at that time, but reality snapped me back real quick. But on the bright side, my listening skills were really good. I give myself that. Okay, number 4. Now let me tell you something kind of good that I didn't really expect. It was at least good for me because it helped me with memorizing some vocabulary words. And that is that Korean has a lot of Konglish. If you don't know what Konglish is, it is Korean and English combined together make Konglish. So basically it means that they're English words with a Korean accent. Some examples. 카메라, 케이크, 커피, 핸드폰, 샤워. I don't know, I'm sure there are a lot more, but those are the ones I can think of at the top of my head. And it made vocabulary time a lot easier than what I expected. I know some people don't like it because they feel like the language is becoming westernized, but for me, when I was learning, I was like, thank you, the Korean gods, thank you for giving me these words that I already know. The 5th thing I wish I knew before I started learning Korean was that just because you move to Korea, you won't become fluent. Even though you're surrounded by Korean speakers, you won't become fluent. So for me personally, when I first moved there, many of you know that I went to a Korean language school, so obviously I was learning Korean. But if I was on a break or I was living there and not taking classes, I wasn't really improving. And I wasn't using my Korean as often if I didn't make an effort to. What I mean is that in major cities, English is everywhere. You know, for directions on the trains, on announcements after they say the Korean, for menus, when you eat out, and then on buildings. It's everywhere. So if I didn't make that effort to improve my skill, I didn't. Even though I lived in that country, I didn't improve. Now, of course, on day-to-day life, I would speak to natives in Korean because that's the polite thing to do. I'm in their country and I should speak to them in their language to the best of my ability. But besides that, if I didn't sit down and study or didn't make an effort to learn, I didn't learn more. I was stuck. So it's definitely possible to live in Korea without knowing much Korean. So that was an unrealistic expectation to have if I didn't put in the work. Eventually I realized that, and then I was like, oh, I've got to actually learn it, sit down and learn. So after I finished my classes, I bought some books and started sort of slowly advancing on my own, and then I'd practice every day, and that's how I improved, not just by living there. Duh, Callie. Number 6. The last thing I wish I knew before I started learning Korean is that Formal and informal speech is a thing. Now I know that sounds kind of dumb. I'm pretty sure a lot of languages have that, some more than others. And maybe I did feel a little bit overwhelmed with this because Korean is my second language. I didn't have any other experience learning any languages, so if your language is sort of like Korean with the formal and informal, let me know. Oh, hey kitty. So let me know if your language is like this, but at the time, I just felt so overwhelmed because it seemed like they were so different. Like I was learning two different languages at once. I was like, whoa, what's happening? So an example I used often in my daily life in Korea was good night. The informal is 잘 자, and the formal is 안녕히 주무세요. What? I used that quite often when I lived with the host family in Korea. I'd have to use those words with different people depending on the age. At times it really did get a bit overwhelming, and I got really discouraged and started becoming inconsistent with my studies. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it clicks really fast, but I'm really passionate about learning this language and I put in the hard work. And it is so rewarding, and I'm loving the process. There were some bumps in the road, but we got through it, and that's all that matters, right? And those were the things I wish I knew before I started learning Korean. I'm sure there are more, but these were just the things that were most obvious when I started to think about this video. Could you relate to anything I mentioned? Let me know in the comments. Or if you had anything different, let me know too. I'm really curious. I want to know your struggles, so I know that I wasn't alone in this. As always, I really appreciate you watching my videos and watching till the end. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram, and I will see you in next week's video. 안녕. Bye bye.